Hey there, Skeleton Key here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Yeah, there was very little notice for this live stream. And yeah, so I don't actually expect anyone to show up for the live chat portion. But if you are here, please do stop in and say hi. And yeah, we can chat about what all we're reading. And you can let me know your thoughts on what I've been reading. And so, yeah, if you are watching on replay, which you probably are, yeah, you're welcome to comment in the comments section and we can chat there. And so I'm going to talk about my week 3 of 2025 and my reading for that. And that includes the other books that I read for Winterween. And so I'll just a reminder that the first book that I read for Winterween was The Chupacabra Ate the Candelabra. That's by Mark Tyler Nobleman and illustrated by Ana Aranda. And it is one where the illustrations do very much make the book, make the story. The story is great. First I listened to it on audio last year, and I was like, okay, that was fine, but I think I need to look at the pictures too. And so I'm glad I finally got this from the library. But that's just a recap from the previous week. And that was for Read a Book in the Dark or at Night. And of course, nice short children's picture book is great for that one. And then for Read a Horror Book published 5 or more years ago, I had forgotten that this was Grady Hendrix's debut. And this is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. And this is, it is a horror story, ghost story, set in a bargain version of IKEA. And and I imagine that is how they got it past legal, is it make it very clear this is not IKEA. Even, yeah, this looks very much like an IKEA catalog. And throughout it's got very IKEA-esque illustrations, and oh, here's a hiring notice, join our team. But they make it very clear. Hendrix makes it very clear that no, this is a knockoff IKEA. That's, they're not Scandinavians, but they are. And maybe the original guy was of Scandinavian descent, but it's based out of, is it Milwaukee? Or I think it's based out of Milwaukee or maybe Minnesota somewhere. But it's it's a ghost story. But we're following these employees who, for various reasons, are roped into. Oh, I guess I should do what I read from Winter. Various reasons are roped into this overnight mission to stay in the store and figure out who is vandalizing things and breaking things and just causing chaos. And it just keeps getting weirder from there. So we're following this group of employees, and they split the party and more weird things happen, and they find somebody, but so there's and I don't want to spoil it. It is just, it's fun. And you will hear various opinions on whether it works as a horror novel or whether it works as a ghost story, or whether it's just gimmicky. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was great. Was it perfect? No. but I'm also not your typical horror reader. I don't read a lot of horror. I'm getting more into horror because I think that's just sort of the zeitgeist of now in America is like, well, everything is horrific. Let's read ghost stories to, make ourselves feel better. But uh, so I'm not a long time horror reader. I haven't read all of Stephen King. I don't have any real strong opinions on Stephen King stuff. Even the stuff I've read, like either I liked it or it was fine or whatever. But and this was actually my first Grady Hendrix, so um, so I can't even tell you how it compares to other Grady Hendrix. Although I will probably be reading, or at least starting. I don't know if I will get through it because I'm told that Witchcraft for Wayward Girls has a lot of like childbirth body horror kind of stuff, and I'm like, I am so not here for that in any genre. Um, you get that a lot in just regular literary fiction. I'm like, no, I don't want that. Um, but anyways, so those are the two that I actually have physical copies to show you. But yeah, that came out in 2014, and I was like, oh, 2014, that was just that was 11 years ago. Okay. Yeah, I'm one of these people that you talk about the 80s, and I'm like, oh, like 20 years ago. No. Hmm. It's just, yeah, it's depressing. It is depressing. All right. And then let's see, I'm going to have to share my screen for the rest of the, what was it, 7 books I read? So, share screen. All right. So, Anyone But Her. There we go. So, Anyone But Her by Cynthia Swanson. And this actually covered 2 prompts. And let's, we'll do that. Okay, so this covered 2 prompts. One, read a novella, manga, or spooky audiobook. So this was a spooky audiobook. And read a thriller or horror book. So this was a thriller. It was a ghost story. And it's set in Denver. And full disclosure, I do know Cynthia Swanson from Sisters in Crime. I mean, we're friendly acquaintances. I'm not even sure she would be able to tell you who I am, but I know who she is. And we've met at various meetings, I think mostly, if not always, on Zoom. But so she'd be like, who? But anyway, so, take that for whatever it's worth, as to, whether or not I let that color or influence my ratings or whatever. I thought this was really well done, though. I try not to let that sort of thing influence my ratings, but my ratings are just a sort of a gut. My star ratings, totally a gut feeling, and I don't put that much thought into it. I do not dwell on star ratings. I'm just like, this was a 5-star read. I really liked the vibe. I noticed that it was a very similar vibe to Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore, which is also set in Denver. And so, I live near Denver, but I don't actually go to Denver that often. I have not spent that much time in Denver, and whenever I've gone to Denver, it's usually been for a meeting of some sort or something that's like in a hotel for the weekend. And, I don't go wandering around exploring a lot. So I have not really personally identified a Denver vibe, but I do really appreciate that the vibe of this book was very much like I think Matthew Sullivan, so last name was Sullivan, that author, that both of those authors gave Denver a very similar vibe. So that tells me that yeah, there is a Denver vibe, um, and I feel like they both really got it, and it is kind of just what I've experienced myself in some small fashion, does seem to jive with that. So it is kind of a spooky place. I mean, there's a lot of history there, and a lot of that history is pretty violent. It's a very, it's a different kind of place. It's not just like any other urban area. And I appreciated that. In this story, it's a dual timeline story. There's a 1979 timeline, and then there's a 2004 timeline. And I really liked how Cynthia did the parallels of the mother-daughter relationship, um, and so this woman she and her husband are moving back to Denver. He's not from Denver, but she's from Denver. She grew up in Denver, and they're moving back, and she's she remembers when her mother, who owned a record shop on Colfax, I believe. Anyway, she was murdered in her record shop, and so that's where the ghost element comes in, and that's not a spoiler. She, right up front, she's talking about how she gets messages. She hears her mother's ghost talking to her, and so essentially she's coming to find out that what she was told about her mother's murder was not completely true. And so then she's dealing with her relationship with her younger brother, and also with her father, who is still alive. And but in the 1979 timeline, another woman has stepped in to try to take her mother's place, and her mother's ghost is saying, look, yeah, I want your dad to be happy, and I want him to, find someone to love and be happy with, but anyone but her. And so, and she doesn't, the ghost of her mother doesn't remember exactly why this woman is suspect. But yeah, she's like, anyone but her. And so Suzanne, she's 14 in 1979. And so the other timeline is in 2004, when Suzanne is moving back and learning that things happened very, very differently. And there's a lot to this story, a lot of really interesting stuff about history. And it's really interesting comparing 1970s Denver to early aughts Denver. So yeah, I would, if you have any interest, if that sounds interesting at all to you, I would recommend you check it out. And then, and this is the last book that I read for Winterween, and this is Sleeping Dogs Lie by Samantha Downing, and this was an audiobook, but it's read a book with a house on the cover or in the title. And so you can kind of see it. There are houses there. And this is a short story. It's I don't know if it has a page count equivalent, but it's less than 2 hours on audio. And it's Samantha Downing. I think this is my third book from Samantha Downing. And I I've really enjoyed For Your Own Good. I think that was the title. I thought that was amazing, and very ambiguous in some ways. And what does the title mean? Yeah, that one. And then A Twisted Love Story. I actually like that. I am an outlier. A lot of people hate that book. I thought it was going interesting places, and then I think an editor kind of shut some stuff down. That's my personal opinion on that one. So I don't feel like it got to do what Downing wanted it to do. And then this is a short story, Sleeping Dogs Lie. It's a novella, actually. And because it's short, I don't want to tell you a lot about it. But anyway, there's a dog walker. Dog walker takes the dog home. She needs to pee, so she goes into the bathroom. And guess what? The dog's owner is lying there dead. So she calls the cops. Cops come out. And so you get this sort of back and forth between the dog walker and the detective. And it's a little awkward, this back and forth, because it's hard to tell exactly where it is going with this. And my other gripe about it is that part of the solution is very, very on the nose. And I can't tell you what I mean by that because that's super spoilery. But it's, well, I can say that it is very much inspired by another story, and it just flat out names the other story. It's like, oh, this is like that other story. And I thought that was just kind of weak. But other than that, I thought the writing was interesting. I had a fair idea of where things were going, but it was still interesting to see it all kind of play out and unfold. So if you have, this is an Audible exclusive. Audible exclusives are, I really don't like Audible exclusives because, well, Amazon, Audible, Bezos, but I read a number of authors that they do the Audible exclusives. They do have things, so I do still have like the cheap Audible account, and but if you do have even like the cheap Audible account, you can get this. Right now, it is available for Audible Plus. It is in the Plus catalog, so you don't have to burn a credit on it. So yeah, it's short. It does some interesting things, and I generally liked it. And so that is it for Winterween, which I guess I should have explained what Winterween is. It's sort of well, Gabby reads, and she started off doing Summerween, and then it's like, well, hey, we need Winterween too, and which is basically Halloween reading and activities, Halloween vibe in the summer, and then in this case in the winter. And it's just a lot of fun. And Gabby puts together some prompts, and sometimes there's an activity prompt like, bake something fallish, autumn, something autumnal, an autumnal treat. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I think Winterween should just be all winter because winter's just kind of spooky. But that takes us out of Winterween. So those are the books I read for Winterween. So we'll go on to the rest of the books that I read. So next up, we have Neurodiversity and the Myth of Normal. And yeah, another Audible exclusive that I got without burning a credit over on Audible. And this is, it is short. It's not even 4 hours long. It's just a very short intro to, okay, there's this neurodiversity thing that covers, autism and ADHD and a lot of other things, and it um, varies according to who you ask what actually falls under the banner of neurodivergent. I think this book does kind of focus on autism and ADHD, but um, it examines this in the sort of in the through the lens of, well, what is normal really? This is neurodivergence. What is, divergent from what? And so what is normal? And it kind of explodes the myth that there is a normal, that we have to kind of, because of the way we pathologize everything we can, because insurance and healthcare in this country, to get any kind of supports, we do have this normal, abnormal dichotomy. And but it does kind of explain that no, it's a difference. Being autistic it's like running Mac OS instead of um, PC or Microsoft or whatever. And so what, I think this is very important to address, because there's so much of a movement, and now it's going to get even worse, but a movement to fix autistic people. It's like, no, we are autistic. That's why we don't, generally speaking, we don't like the person first language, so and so has autism, or a person with autism, which is, that's considered considered better. And I think even some journalistic style manuals tell you have to word it that way. But no, we are autistic. It's part of who we are. And I think it's important to understand that no, you can't just take it out of us somehow, or, lop it off, whatever. It's integral to who we are. And it's actually an important part of human diversity. There it says neurodiversity is a natural part of human diversity. And anyway, so I have seen criticisms that this doesn't go into depth. It's not even 4 hours long. It's not meant to be an in-depth. It's an introduction to this concept that normal is not, there is no normal. And you really have to consider neurodiverse people, people who have differences as being different, and learn how we can all work together to make these differences not damaging. So, and yeah, there's a lot about disability theory, and so I don't really want to get all into that, but it's short, and it's purposefully short, just to kind of get you rethinking how the world wants you to think about these things. And so next up, and this was just, I can't remember why I picked this to read at this time. I think I needed something with something on the cover to tick off a box somewhere. And I got this in a Stuff Your Kindle day. And oh no, I had to read something, my lowest rated thing. And okay, so it was rated at 2 stars. It had, and when I picked it up, and then I realized, oh, this one is separated out because somebody screwed up the title. And so I merged it, and now it's 3.92 stars, which really doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm also not a comic book reader in general, and I just really kind of don't get these. It's Avengers one shots, and it's not a one shot. It's not even a half shot. It's like a few. It's 24 pages setting up a few scenes of the Avengers and the Black Panther are gonna go find Captain America and do something, and that's all that. And nothing really happens, and it's just, yeah, I didn't get it. I gave it 2 stars. It was fine for a teaser, I guess. So maybe I just don't understand what Free Comic Book Day is about. If it's just these teaser things, or I don't know. It really doesn't compel me to go get more comic books. So, but I'm not generally a comic book reader, so maybe it just really doesn't matter, and nobody cares what I think, which I don't even really care what I think. So, yeah, there you go. Next, The Woods in Winter, and I read this for the Cozy Reader book club. Yeah, I don't think any of us really knew what to expect from this. I think most of us, if we had read anything by Stella Gibbons before, it was, and the title is escaping me. The other thing that she's, let's see, does it show down here? No, it doesn't. Weird. Cold Comfort Farm. That's it. So this is not at all like Cold Comfort Farm. So don't go reading this expecting it to be like Cold Comfort Farm. Some of the writing style is the same, but it was very, I don't know, kind of episodic. It was sort of like, and this was the last thing she wrote. This was published in 1970. And like Cold Comfort Farm came out in like the 30s, I think. And, so this was this was basically the end of her career. And it's sort of like she'd been kind of writing these like little short stories almost, or vignettes. And I guess she was thinking, I gotta retire. I've got these really cool, like little vignettes. I should string them together and make them into something. That's just kind of the impression I got. That's what it felt like to me. I have no idea what the reality of this was, but it was really interesting. I liked the characters. The characters were really varied and interesting, and the humor, there was a lot of humor in this, but it was also very bleak. But the humor was very much similar to the sort of dry humor in Cold Comfort Farm. So if you're looking for more of that humor, this was a solid read. It was kind of, like I said, kind of episodic, but it was a really interesting glimpse because it's set in the 1930s. With then an epilogue in, I think, like around 1970, or maybe the late 60s or so. But there is this epilogue that kind of wraps everything up. So, but other than that, it is set in the 30s, and it's a nice read. It's interesting and entertaining. It's not really like anything else I've read. So if you've read some Stella Gibbons and liked it, I think if you like her writing style, the style is there, but it's very subdued. You won't read it and go, oh yeah, this is obviously a Stella Gibbons novel. But I thought it was well worth the read. I'm glad I read it. And the last thing I have on my list for today is Doppelganger, A Trip into the Mirror World. And let's see. I'm not sure if this was my first 5-star read of the year. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But the others, because Goodreads doesn't have half stars or quarters. Yeah, I've started on Fable, and Fable has quarter stars, which is nice. But yeah, this just kind of blew me away. I'd heard so many conflicting reports, and but I'm like, all of these really, people really dragging it down, but it still got 4.22 stars on Goodreads. So yeah, let's read it and see what we think. And I was just amazed. And it started off because the premise is that Naomi Klein, this is nonfiction, Naomi Klein is discovering that Naomi Wolf is often that she and Naomi Wolf. I keep wanting to say Fox, but it's Wolf. She and Naomi Wolf are being conflated a lot. And that, the Naomi Wolf will do something that people don't agree with, and then they'll say, "Did you hear what Naomi Klein did?" And I at first I thought, well, that's just sort of an odd coincidence. Um and honestly, I couldn't even tell you who Naomi Wolf is. But apparently Naomi Wolf used to be a liberal feminist. I can't tell you what wave. I'm very confused about the different kinds of feminism. Um, but apparently she used to be a well-known liberal feminist, and then she kind of got sucked into the MAGA cult or something adjacent to it. I don't know what, maybe the Tea Party. I don't know what movements, but anyway, she finally made it into this MAGA cult celebrity status, which I guess I don't follow MAGA cult celebrities enough to know who she is. But Naomi Klein in this book detailed a lot of things that Naomi Wolf was saying that then Naomi Klein was being blamed for, and Naomi Klein was just, no, how do I set the record straight? And the subtitle is A Trip into the Mirror World. And so she takes this as a starting point and then explores all, the mirror world, and that being basically this sort of upside down version of the United States. And our culture and our society and what we stand for and believe, and it's like the upside down. And it is very much disturbing. And I don't know how to describe it, because it's so, it's 416 pages, which is not short, but she packs so much in that it's really even hard to describe it, because she intertwines so many things, basically talking about, some political thing over here, but how that ties in with autism rep. And she'll talk about that. And it, I know it sounds rambly, but things do, to at least it felt to me like everything progressed normally and very, very, it flowed well. That one topic flowed well into the other, and it was this just really big, deep dive into everything wrong that is going on now. And I really feel for Naomi Klein. But it was one thing that was really frustrating about this is, so this came out in, the publication date here is September 12th, 2023, where, so, it takes a while for something to actually get into print. So when she was writing all this, there was no inkling as to what was going to be coming in 2024. And 2024 was just so weird and so strange. And there was, it's like, I did not have Kamala Harris on my bingo board for 2024. It's like all that stuff. And so, she this her perspective in this book is from 2023, which was not very long ago, but so much has happened just since that it's like, oh my gosh, what does Naomi Klein make of all this? So that's one thing we talked a lot about. I read this for a nonfiction book club, and that is one thing that we talked a lot about was, gosh, what did Naomi Klein think of 2024? Because 2024 was so far beyond the pale in so many ways. And things that 2023 Naomi Klein probably thought were going to be resolved by the end of 2023. And no, they went completely the opposite direction. And now here we are in 2025 and the world is hell. But this is fine. And I do want to talk a little bit about, so thinking about this, it was comforting in some ways, but very worrisome in others. But, and I'll talk more about it in week 5, I guess, week 5's wrap up. Because, yeah, I'm in week 5 right now. And, but The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. If anyone needs something short and hopeful and comforting, yet kind of examining what's wrong with the world, but giving some concrete ideas. If you're looking for something like that, something to kind of get you through this era with a little bit of sanity intact, I do recommend that. It's a very slim volume, really quick read, but really, really a nice, comforting read in some ways, an empowering read in some ways, and I do recommend that. But that pretty much wraps up my reading for week 3 of 2025, the week of January 13th. So I hope to be back soon with week 4 and some follow-up on some other things that I've been working on this month. And yeah, and then sometime next week, hopefully I'll be a little bit back on track. It's really hard to predict my schedule. A lot of it just is like, how many spoons do I have today? And poof, spoons are gone. I'm not doing anything today. So yeah, so that's why my live streams are a little random. And some days it's like, oh, do I get to walk today? Do I get to, it's like, or I go out and do stuff and then I get home and it's like, I can't move now. All right. So it is unpredictable and I apologize for that. But that's just how it's going to have to be for the time being. But I appreciate coming out and hanging out with me. And like I said, so yeah, I was not expecting anyone to chat here today, but hopefully on the replay, this will be up as a replay before very long. So yeah, please let me know if you have any thoughts on any of these books that I have been reading, or other suggestions for books to help navigate the times we are in. And yeah, anything you can do to help make this little corner of the internet a better, brighter place, that would be lovely. And talk at you later.